Welcome to a play-by-play review. I am your host Henry, and now that week 3 is done, we can finally start to see some narratives forming here in the NFL season. Week 1's kind of, you can almost throw it away with how a lot of teams play in that week. Week 2 is more of a, things start to form up. Week 3, I think, is when you can finally start to say it's like, oh, this team is legit. This team is not legit. I mean, it's not always the case. I think back to, what was it, like 2017, I want to say, Miami was 3-0 and they were just not a good team. But I think that's more the exception than the rule. We kind of see more and more how teams are going to generally play in the season now that there's 3 weeks of tape on them. And this week it was kind of insane, I'd say. There were some pretty crazy games. Lots of turnovers in pretty much every game. It felt like no one wanted to hold on to the ball, like, ever. And special teams especially were just bonkers. I mean, there's blocked kicks, punt returns for a touchdown, blocked punts. There are no kick returns for a touchdown, I believe. The Washington Deebo Samuel got close in the opening kickoff, but no kickoff returns. But still, it's like, I think 3 separate blocked field goals in like pretty climactic games. And, Seahawks were mostly the contributors to the block punts in that game. I'll get to them in a sec. But yeah, it was pretty crazy this whole week. There's very few games I felt like you could definitively predict what was going to happen. And we'll start right away with Thursday Night Football. And this is one where the Dolphins, coming into it, were 0-2. We're coming into Buffalo on a short week after some major questions and just how they were playing. The Dolphins looked absolutely terrible through 2 weeks. And the Bills kind of looked like world beaters. They had that nail biter against Baltimore in week 1 where they came back and won, and then just trounced the Jets last week. And so everyone was kind of saying that, this week it was going to be just an absolute beatdown. Like, Dolphins were just going to get absolutely destroyed. It was going to be, it would be like the reverse of their 70-20 beatdown of Denver a few years back. And so the Dolphins did lose 31-21 to the Bills, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I'd say people were expecting. It still wasn't good. But I mean, like, people were shocked to see the Dolphins actually put together a competent drive to start the game. They marched down the field in 10 plays and scored a touchdown. Tua actually looked pretty good. And, it was people, the haters for the Dolphins were shrinking away at that. And the Dolphins actually kept it tied through the first half. They just weren't able to close it out in the second half. Tua had a chance to tie it back up in the fourth quarter and threw a bad interception that was both kind of on him, but also a really, really good defensive play by the Bills there, just reading just how the whole play was developing, and just a really good interception there. But overall, I don't think the Dolphins, I wouldn't say the Dolphins or Dolphins fans are happy at any point in the season. They're 0-3 and don't look good. But this is one where I'd say they aren't as definitively miserable as they were the first 2 weeks. Dolphins, I think they have something like 17 players on injured reserve or something like that. It's like absolutely insane. Like, pretty much their entire secondary, they have no cornerbacks. All of them are injured, which is not ideal, especially when you have to play Josh Allen. But yeah, it just feels like everything that can go wrong for the Dolphins is going wrong at the moment. Tua doesn't look good. Their offensive line doesn't look good. Their play calling doesn't look good. Their defense doesn't look good. Their injury list doesn't look good. Their record doesn't look good. The only thing that did look good was that they didn't get completely blown out by powerhouse in the Buffalo Bills. Bills, for what I can say about them, they look good. They didn't play their best game, especially on the defensive side. They could have played better, but that's very nitpicky for a team that's 3-0 and pretty dominant so far. 2 division wins and a win against the Ravens. So not really much you can complain about for the Bills. James Cook looks more than worth the contract extension. He's been playing incredibly well. I think the only negative was that Christian Barmore got injured during the game. I don't know. I haven't seen too much of like if he's going to be out long term, but he's been a key contributor for their defense, and having him out for even a little bit can be rough. But I don't think it's a serious injury, and that's if the only negative takeaway you can really have for this game is a minor injury to one of your defensive players, it's a good week. So next up, we move on to Sunday, and going to start with my Washington Commanders. Commanders hosted the 1-1 Ravens. Commanders were 2-0, though without Jayden Daniels in this game. He had the knee sprain in the Packers game. And while there was that 10-day rest because they were coming off Thursday Night Football, there wasn't a lot of certainty on whether Jayden Daniels would play. The Commanders, Dan Quinn, they took I think, the smart path of resting Jayden Daniels. There was no need to play him, especially because Marcus Mariota seems to be one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, and he had a very solid game, all things considered. It was kind of sloppy to start, but Commanders and Mariota as a whole looked good overall. They defeated the Raiders 41-24, had, I think, over 200 rushing yards as a team this game. Very much a running back by committee now with Austin Eckler down. Chris Rodriguez, who's a 7th round pick from a few years back, who has been a healthy scratch the first 2 weeks. He got the start in this game, but only really played in the first couple drives. Bill Krosky-Merritt played a good chunk of it. And then Jeremy McNichols also played a good bit. He broke a 60-yard touchdown run on a play where he should have been tackled like 3 yards after the line of scrimmage, but poor tackling on the Raiders' part. And then the entire Raiders team was just kind of standing around as McNichols broke a tackle and then just kind of ran for the touchdown because no one was there to stop him. It was a little embarrassing on the Raiders' part, and I think you can kind of say that for the whole game for the Raiders. For the Commanders, to wrap up my thoughts on them, their offense looked significantly better than it did against the Packers. They just looked a lot more fluid. Mariota he looked in control and understood the offense well. There was some sloppiness. Penalties are still a bit of an issue. Josh Connerly played a much better game. He was kind of getting raked over the coals a little bit, but also he was a rookie going up against Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter in his first ever game as an NFL player, and then going up against Micah Parsons last week, so not exactly an easy one. And then he was going up against Max Crosby in this game, and he actually played a really good game this week. I think it was like 23 pass blocking snaps, and he didn't allow a single pressure or something like that. I'm pretty sure that was a stat that I saw. So yeah, significantly better there for Josh Connerly Jr. There was some shuffling on the offensive line as well. I believe Chris Paul got the start at guard. Same with Andrew Wiley. So overall, it was some questions going into the game for the Commanders, but they came out with a very solid win on all facets. Their defense looked significantly better. Their run defense especially was just bulldozing this Raiders offensive line through the entire game. And the secondary looked a lot better. Trey Amos, especially their second round rookie at cornerback, looks like an absolute steal. He's been playing insanely well. And really the only negatives for the Commanders coming out of this is that Terry McLaurin has a quadriceps injury. Doesn't seem major, but he might miss next week against the Falcons. And there's free agent signing at safety. Will Harris has a fractured fibula, I believe, and he's on IR, so he's going to be out for the long term. They signed former Packers first-round pick at safety Darnell Savage, who was most recently on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Savage was never quite a great player in his tenure. He did have a good game for Green Bay in the playoff game against Dallas a few years back where they won as the 7th seed. And Savage is a UMD guy, so he's a local kid, grew up a Redskins fan. So, I always like seeing homecomings in that kind of sense. So as a replacement level guy, I like the signing just for that. How he plays, I don't know, but we'll see. I think we'll probably see a lot more of Jeremy Reeves going forward. He had a really, really nice tackle in the game where stuffed not Ashton Jeanty, but one of their, I think the 3rd string running back that the Raiders have, stuffed him on the 3rd and 1 with just a perfect tackle. And yeah, overall, Commanders got back on track. They're 2-1. They're looking good. As for the Raiders, oh boy, this is about as bad of a game as you could get without any major injuries. Geno Smith did not look good. Their offensive line looked atrocious. Ashton Genty just could not get anything going. He had like one run of that was like decent, where he had like a 15-yard run. It was basically every other time he was just getting met in the backfield, and like just every single run play. Like his offensive line was just doing him negative favors. Like they were just atrocious. Would pick a bad adjective, and that would apply to the Raiders' offensive line in this game. They were just not performing up to standard. And yeah, it was their lone bright spot was Trey Tucker, who had the quietest 8 catches, 145 yards and 3 touchdown performance ever. Like he was putting up like prime Randy Moss numbers in this blowout loss, because the Raiders were just not getting any of their other playmakers involved. I mean, Jacoby Myers was pretty non-existent. Brock Bowers was pretty non-existent. Ashton Genty was getting bottled up. So it just left Trey Tucker, who the Commanders just couldn't seem to cover for some reason. Like he was just wide open on like every play, and he feasted out of that. So he's probably going to be a big fantasy waiver wire pickup this coming week. Now that I think about it, but yeah, that was when the lone bright spot is your like third string wide or second or third string. I don't really know specifically where he lines up in the depth chart, but you're not like when one wide receiver has a good game in a blowout loss, not what you want. So the Raiders fall to 1-2, and I think any optimism they had coming into this season is quickly evaporating, almost entirely just due to this poor offensive line performance and Geno Smith looking pretty underwhelming so far. And I think that also does kind of stem from the offensive line performance as well. So let me take a sip of water here real quick. But yeah, it was overall not good for the Raiders. So next up is the 2-0 Steelers going into Foxborough to take on the 2-0 or the 0-2 Patriots, I should say. Or no, they were 1-1. I apologize. I'm reading the ESPN box scores wrong. So I believe both teams were 1-1 going into this. Actually, I was reading the home and away stats for them. But yeah, the Steelers and Patriots both 1-1 heading into this game. And this was ugly. Steelers won 21-14. It should have been by a lot more, considering the Patriots turned the ball over a whopping 5 times and still almost had a chance to win, or at least tie the game up late. Demario Douglas caught a pass on a 4th and 3 and decided to go backwards instead of just dive for the first down, and lost them the game because of it. But yeah, for the Patriots, it was not good. I'll say that. Yeah, it was. They just could not hold on to the ball. Ramondre Stevenson had, I believe, 2 fumbles. Antonio Gibson had another fumble. Mike Vrabel just seems to refuse to play TreVeyon Henderson at all, just in general. I like Henderson, who's known for not fumbling the ball, just did not get a lot of carries in this game, which is surprising. Stevenson had a fumble on like the 2-yard line, where he was diving for a touchdown. And yeah, it was not good. Drake May had some fumbling issues as well. And it was one where the Steelers defense finally showed up. The Patriots were really struggling outside of Hunter Henry. He had a good game. But yeah, the Patriots, it's surprising to see a Mike Vrabel-led team be this sloppy, both in the turnovers and the penalties. The Patriots have been committing a ton of penalties, but I mean, it's just surprising there. I wouldn't worry like a ton. I think Drake May is still developing, and there's still a lot of just a talent void for the Patriots, considering how bad a lot of the drafts in the like 2020s Bill Belichick era was. So there's just not a lot of talent to work with. Similar to the Commanders, where they have the Ron Rivera era of drafting just basically gave them nothing to work with. And so the new regime just doesn't have a lot of depth or even like high-end talent to like work with. So for the Patriots, it's like they have a star quarterback, they have some good pieces here and there, but there's just a lot of holes to be filled, and there's still some question marks. I'm still not convinced on Josh McDaniels. He's just been a terrible head coach and kind of carried by Tom Brady in the offensive coordinator department. So I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't give up on the Patriots. Well, this year I'm not super high on them, but in the near future I wouldn't give up on them. But they still have a lot to go before they can really make some noise in the postseason. As for the Steelers, they should have won by a lot more, which is worrying considering they turned the ball over 5 times and only scored 21 points. And I think it was like at some point they had turned the like 3 straight turnovers forced on the Patriots, and they had like -2 yards out of it on their 3 drives. It was actually embarrassing. Aaron Rodgers looked okay. Didn't look very good. He threw a pretty bad interception to no one in particular on his team. Steelers still don't really have a run game. Jaylen Warren led them with 47 total yards. So it was kind of my worry where their lack of a run game and Aaron Rodgers being limited in his old age for a quarterback is making their offense one-dimensional. And they eked out a win this time, so they're 2-1 now. And leading the AFC North, surprisingly enough, but I don't think that'll last unless like they really find a way to turn it around. I wouldn't expect the Steelers to go far just because I don't think they have enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to make up for or just really make some noise. I mean, who knows? The Steelers always seem to just find a way to win these ugly games, but I'm not confident in the Steelers whatsoever. So they advance to 2-1, though a pretty unconvincing 2-1 in my opinion. Patriots fall to 1-2. So moving from one AFC North team to another, the Green Bay Packers, who I and many others had been crowning as one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league, headed into Cleveland, Ohio, into the dog pound to take on the 0-2 Browns. And this was quite surprising because the Browns won 13-10. And I don't think many people were expecting this. I had said last week that the Packers might have the best defense in history with how they play through the first 2 weeks. I might have to switch that to the Browns having the best defense in history. Because even last week, they gave up a lot of points to Baltimore, but like their offense gave them no favors. They were turning the ball over a lot. The Baltimore defense got a pick 6 as well, or a fumble recovery touchdown. I don't remember exactly. So it's the Browns defense actually wasn't playing horribly. They weren't playing the best at defending Lamar, but they held Derrick Henry in check that game. And in this game, they were just destroying the Packers. Like Jordan Love could do absolutely nothing. He was getting destroyed in the pocket. It was rough to watch. Especially if you were a Packers fan. I mean, if you're a Browns fan, you're loving it. Like it was just a defensive masterclass to shut down a pretty high-powered through the first few weeks offense. Packers, I'm very surprised that they just came out incredibly flat and just had no answers for this Browns defense. I think they had some offensive line injuries, so that might have been a part of it, but like they just could not get anything going. Their only boon was that their defense was playing well and just completely suffocating the Browns offense for a good chunk of it. Joe Flacco does not look like he has any gas left in the tank. But as the game went on and the Packers were unable to really pull away, the Browns started chipping away. Quinshon Judkins had a good game, 94 yards and a touchdown on 18 carries. And Browns just hung in there. They started chewing away on that at that Packers defense. Eventually the dam broke and they were able to score a touchdown. And then came the end where the Packers, I believe it was tied at that point, 10-10. And the Packers were lining up for like a 45-yard field goal with like a minute left to win. and the Browns blocked that field goal. And then they were able to march down the field and score a game-winning field goal on their own. Andre Schmidt, who lost them the game in week 1, won them this game. And so this was a really surprising result for a Packers team that looked like the Super Bowl favorite through 2 weeks, basically. Like they were just dismantling the Lions and dismantling the Commanders, and then just completely ran into a brick wall named the Cleveland Browns. I don't really know what this says about these two teams moving forward. I think the Packers will bounce back, but there's still a bit of a worry where there's tape out there on how to actually counter this Packers offense. As for the Browns, it's a really good win. I don't know how much they can build off this because I feel like there's always been a couple of wins the past few years where the Browns defense just plays out of their mind. It's just this offense under Flacco just does not have any pop to it. So I guess we'll probably see, or we might see Dylan Gabriel here in the future because it doesn't look like Shedeur Sanders is going to be starting anytime soon. His stock just keeps falling further and further. My prediction for seeing him start is falling further and further. He's just seems like more and more off the field stories pop up that just do him no favors. And considering he's still sitting behind Dylan Gabriel in the depth chart, I expect that if the Browns are to make a quarterback change, it will be to Dylan Gabriel. He did get some playing time, I think, last week in Baltimore. So there's that. But for Cleveland, I mean, they're very scrappy, and they've shown that so far. They held Joe Burrow in check week 1. They did a good job against the Ravens, especially against Derrick Henry week 2. And they completely stymied the Packers in week 3. So this defense could be something. They just need to have, if they had like any spark on offense, they would actually be pretty good. But right now they just don't. That could change if they decide to lean more on Quinshon Judkins in the future and take the ball out of Flacco's hands more. But right now, I'm still not super high on the Browns. Next up is an AFC South matchup between the 2-0 Colts and the 0-2 Titans in Nashville. And this is one where it was probably more easy to predict. I wouldn't say that, or I wouldn't have said it at the start of the season, but apparently the Colts are now like actually good. I don't know how, but they're actually good. And they just completely shellacked the Titans. They won 41-20 in a game that was just never really close. Daniel Jones still looks good. He didn't have his best game, all things considered, but he didn't turn the ball over. I don't think he did. And he was making plays when they had to be. And I mean, this was more the Jonathan Taylor game. Jonathan Taylor had an amazing game, 102 yards and 3 total touchdowns on 17 carries. He's looking more and more like his 2021 self now. Provided he stays healthy, he might lead the league in rushing yards if he's able to stay healthy, because he's been playing incredibly well so far through 3 weeks. And yeah, for the Colts, this was I was one of them. I had major doubts. People had doubts. I had said that I thought they were going to be picking top 5 in the draft. And right now, I think they're probably picking bottom 5, essentially, like in the 30 range, maybe. They look really good. I mean, like I said at the top of this, where Miami back in 2017, 2018, whatever it was, they went 3-0, but weren't very good. I think this is different. This is a Colts team that has won games definitively. Like they're not falling into trap games against Tennessee, and they're playing good football on every level. And yeah, this is suddenly the Colts are now the favorite to win still a weak AFC South, but weak in the sense and not the way people were expecting. And I'll get to the other 2 AFC South teams in a bit. But yeah, Colts could actually make some noise here in this season, make some noise in the postseason if this trend continues. They look good. As for the Titans, Cam Ward still looks pretty good. He had a bad interception through a pick 6 on, a throw that I think a lot of rookies tend to make. Whereas he just needs more time in the NFL. It's just not a throw you make where he's basically just throwing a lob up to the flat to his running back that just easily gets picked. But I mean, he still has some good throws and he still looks pretty solid. And their defense is like has some moments to it. They just need to get rid of Brian Callahan because he's a terrible coach. He had a sequence towards the end of the first half where he literally didn't know if he wanted to go for a field goal or go for it on fourth down. The Colts took a timeout. He still didn't know. He then called a timeout. Still didn't know. And then they got a delay game, which is just not good. That's not how you coach, to be specific. And like he's apparently he's giving up offensive play calling to the quarterback's coach or something like that. So yay. But if the Titans are going to do anything in the coming years, they need to not do it with Brian Callahan because he is proven to be pretty inept at his job. So yeah, that Titans fans, I'd look away. You're 0-3, and this is one where I'd start looking at draft boards. For another team that's probably going to start looking at draft boards here soon, the Bengals went into Minnesota. Bengals were 2-0. Vikings were 1-1 coming into this season. Coming into this game, not the season. Both teams having to play backup quarterbacks due to injury. So the Jake Browning versus Carson Wentz showdown that everyone was predicting 3 weeks ago. And yeah, since he's going to probably want to start looking at draft boards here, if this is how they're going to be playing without Joe Burrow for the next couple of months, because they lost 48-10, which is not good. I think is pretty obvious. It's not the kind of score you want to be losing by. This was a game that was dominated by one man in particular, that man being Isaiah Rodgers, a cornerback for the Vikings. He had a pick six, a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and then another forced fumble, all in one half. He literally got the highest grade possible, highest grade ever by PFF for like anyone. He was playing a perfect game. It was actually insane. The Bengals could not stop turning the ball over. They had a sequence where late in the first half they were down 17-0, or 17-3 or something, 14. I don't know. They're not down by a lot, and then they fumbled like 3 times in the span of 2 minutes. Basically, it was really bad. They basically just gifted the Vikings like 20 points. It was rough to say the least. Yeah, the Bengals, Jake Browning did not have a good game. Jamar Chase was pretty quiet. Their defense played horribly. It was just all around bad. The Vikings, they look good, all things considered. They're playing a backup quarterback on a team that is very top heavy with their starting quarterback, and with Joe Burrow out, the Bengals are missing a major part of their entire team because they're a team that was built on their offense, given that they invested so much money into Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, and not much on the defense. So without Burrow, Bengals are pretty much dead in the water. And while I had a tiny bit of optimism, given that Jake Browning pulled out the win against Jacksonville last week, and that he had an okay season filling in for the injured Joe Burrow a couple of seasons ago, if this is how he's going to play, since he's done. They're just not going to be able to win enough before Joe Burrow returns late in the season. Vikings, I think it's looking like another week of Carson Wentz in week 4. So I don't really know how far they're going to go because they can't play Cincy every week. But, I mean, a win's a win. They look good. And they're 2-1. So, yeah, can't really complain about that. Next up, I'm going to take another sip of water because my throat's getting a little scratchy again. But actually next up is the Eagles and the Rams. This is in Philadelphia. Both teams were 2-0. And, well, it was a tale of two halves. In the first half, I was salivating. I make it no secret that I'm a hater of the Eagles. I'm a Commanders fan. I have to hate the Eagles. It's in my blood. But I especially hate the Eagles now because they're good, and just really frustrating to watch because they're just incredibly boring. Don't take my word on it. Take Drew Brees' word for it. He said it as well. Um, but this is the first half was pretty much all Rams. The Eagles had one touchdown drive where they really shouldn't have scored because it was another false start on the tush push. And it was a tush push in basically for a touchdown as well. That should have been called, but it wasn't. And the Eagles were down 19-7 by half. They had pretty much no offense. AJ Brown had like no targets at all. Jalen Hurts basically didn't throw the ball downfield whatsoever. Saquon Barkley was getting bottled up. I was ready. I was so ready to be like, I told you so. The Eagles suck this year. They've just been fluky, and I was ready. And then the second half came around, and Eagles remembered that they could throw the ball. I guess maybe Sirianni took Kevin Patullo's tablet from his hands or something. I don't know. Because their offensive game plan just completely changed. And basically just involved a lot of throwing the ball downfield to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith because they had Emmanuel Forbes back there in coverage. And if you've followed the Commanders in the past few years, Emmanuel Forbes, who was their bust of a draft pick, I mean, Forbes wasn't the only one in the Rams secondary this week, but he had a really rough stretch of games against A.J. Brown in his rookie year, and it's continued now. The Rams just completely collapsed in the second half. They had two blocked field goals, including one that would have won them the game at the end, but Jordan Davis was able to block it and return it for a touchdown. Not that it mattered because the game was over at that point, but the Eagles completely turned it around. Jalen Hurts remembered how to throw football in the second half, and they actually looked like a proper team in the second half compared to what they were in the first half. And the Rams just completely shut down. Like, I don't even really know why. They just stopped doing what they were doing. Sean McVay didn't really call a good game, especially in the second half. They were really struggling to convert fourth downs. And just overall, it was just really surprising to see the Rams completely fall apart in just like a completely spectacular and utter way. Like, I haven't seen a team fall apart so completely like that in a while. It was honestly impressive. But yeah, Eagles won 33-26 on a very impressive second half resurgence. They moved to 3-0. Rams fall to 2-1. I am very grumpy about it and because I unfortunately had to tip my cap to the Eagles on playing a good game in the second half, but I'm still not 100% convinced. I still need to see more from the Eagles because they basically played one good half of football offensively. I mean, they had some decent good halves of football against the Cowboys, but like the Cowboys defense sucks, and we'll get to them here a bit because it's just going to be getting worse and worse. So I mean, the Eagles play Tampa next week, and Tampa's kind of been their kryptonite. So if the Eagles beat Tampa Bay next week, I will tip my cap to them. Although that will also have to depend on how they win. But yeah, I'd say wait a sec on if the Eagles are still the Eagles because they haven't shown to be quite the same team that they were in the back stretch of last year. They're still 3-0. They're still looking good, but I give it a sec. So after that, speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they played host to the 0-2 Jets. Bucks were 2-0 going into this. New York Jets were 0-2, being forced to play Tyrod Taylor, not Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor as their backup quarterback since Justin Fields is in concussion protocol. And this is one for the longest time I just kind of wrote it off because the Bucks were pretty much up the whole time. And then the Jets scored 21 points in the fourth quarter and suddenly made it a game. They were actually winning. And I was very surprised, but the Bucks ended up kicking a game-winning field goal to go 3-0 and win 29-27. But, I was surprised to see the Jets stick with it and actually fight back. They had a blocked field goal for a touchdown in this game. And yeah, it was I for a Jets season that's quickly looking to get flushed down the toilet. I was impressed with how they, stayed in there and actually made this a good game. Obviously, it sucks losing and being 0-3, but they showed a lot of fight against a pretty good team in the Buccaneers. So I wouldn't quite write off the Jets as being like done. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year, especially at 0-3. In fact, no 0-3 team has ever made the playoffs. But I wouldn't count them out like as just a pushover. I still think they can be pretty scrappy. And the defense buckled down significantly in the second half, but it's okay. Jets still have a lot of work to do. As for the Buccaneers, they're 3-0. Overall, they look pretty good, but they've all three of their games have been won on last second field goals, and that's definitely not sustainable. So they need to find a way to close or not make games stressful. What isn't going to help is Mike Evans going down with a hamstring injury again. This time it's said that he's only going to be out a couple weeks, which is good because he's obviously sorely needed. So we're probably going to see a lot more of Emeka Ibuka, who's been absolutely worth the pick. He's been incredible so far. So for the Bucs, they're good. They just need to be a bit more convincing in the late game, and just gotta not make things close all the time. Essentially, it's not going to help going up against the Eagles this next week. But in these past few seasons, they've played the Eagles really, really well. So who knows? They could move to 4-0 there. So continuing with the NFC South, probably one of the easier games to summarize. The Falcons at the Panthers. Falcons were 1-1. Panthers were 0-2. And I had said last week where Panthers had lost, but they looked a lot better. And in this game, they continued to look a lot better as they won 30-0 against the Falcons. Now, Bryce Young has played the Falcons well in his career, in his 3 years now in the NFL. It's been like the one team he's played consistently well. But this is like there's playing a team well and beating a team 30-0. And what's weirder is that the Falcons actually outgained the Panthers in like every statistical category on offense. They just were bad. Like Michael Penix had a really bad game, threw 2 picks, including a pick 6. Their kicker, Parker Romo, who went 5 for 5 last week, the Falcons kicker, and caused them to cut Younghoe Koo. Koo had a large contract, so they save a lot of cap space out of that as well. But Parker Romo, who is going to be their new savior kicker, he went 0 for 2 on field goals, which is not a good look. But yeah, overall, this is Falcons could do nothing right. I mean, it was turnovers on downs, interceptions, missed kicks. Like any traction they had just was erased every single time. I don't even think they made it into the red zone at once ever in this game. They just could not do anything. Bijan didn't get a ton of touches and had an okay game. And it was just one where the Panthers defense just completely suffocated the Falcons on every level. Panthers offense, I mean, they didn't do a ton. They looked okay. They obviously won the game. They played clean football. And didn't really do anything bad, but they weren't like incredibly flashy. But I mean, hey, a win's a win. That shutout win against your division rival is a big win. So you can build some momentum off this if you're the Carolina Panthers. Even if they didn't offensively, they probably still need some more work. But for a team that looked dead in the water 2 weeks in, or close to dead in the water, I should say, they suddenly have life now. And even if the division's probably going to get locked up by the Buccaneers again, they could still try and make some noise. I definitely wouldn't count the Panthers out. I wouldn't count them out whatsoever. For the Falcons, I don't want to count them out either. They just need to not put up this kind of performance again. Because if they keep playing like this, we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations. But yeah, this is one where if you're the Falcons, just flush it down the toilet, forget about it, move on. It was a week to forget if you're a Falcons fan. If you're a Panthers fan, it's the exact opposite. This is hang it on the banner. You beat the Falcons 30-0. But seriously, that was a great win for the Panthers, turning their season around here to get them to 1-2 and match up with the Falcons at 1-2. So another sip of water here real quick and I will move on. So moving from conferences, but keeping in the South, we have the other AFC South matchup. The 0-2 Texans going to the 1-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. And this was certainly one of the games of all time. It happened, points were scored, plays were executed sometimes. So there are some touchdowns, there were some field goals. But less said about this game, the better. I said last week, so I follow, among many sports YouTubers and just sports-related media personalities I follow on Twitter. Brett Coleman is one of them. He's a very, very good YouTuber and analyst. I would highly recommend checking him out. He does very good work. And for some reason, he decided to watch the Texans-Jags game. And with every tweet he made, I could see his sanity just slip. Just further and further into the abyss. It was such an ugly game. It was so bad. It was just nothing seemed to go right, and neither side seemed to want the win. It was a turnover. It was bad. It was really bad. I mean, Trevor Lawrence didn't look very good. CJ Stroud looked even worse. Nico Collins had a good game, although he did have a costly fumble at the end. It was Houston offensive line is down there with probably the Raiders for being one of, if not the worst in the league. Trading away with Laramie Tunsil does not look like a good idea in hindsight. And the Houston Texans lost 17-10. They're now 0-3. Jags are 2-1. Yeah, it's not good. Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jags has not looked great. He might have the Shane Waldron curse. Shane Waldron has been assistant coach and coordinator. He was in Los Angeles for a bit after he left. Cooper Kupp broke out. He was in Seattle after he left. Jackson Smith and Jigba broke out. He was most recently with the Bears as their offense coordinator last year. He's left. Now Rome Odunze is breaking out. And also Luther Burden. Oh, I guess Luther Burden was on the team last year. But Rome Odunze is breaking out. I'm not saying correlation equals causation here, but it's not been good for the star wide receiver for the Jags. And people are pointing to Shane Waldron. And while I don't actually agree, it's kind of funny to hop on the bandwagon there. But in all seriousness, this is such a sloppy game and not a fun game to watch. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, you got the win against a division rival. You didn't look good, but you got the win. You get be happy about that. Fix the problems you have and keep moving forward. You're 2-1 and try and catch the Colts. For the Texans, there might need to start be some uncomfortable conversations going on with everything. CJ Stroud has not looked good so far this season. You hope he's not a one-year wonder. I don't think he is, just because he seems to be very talented, but he's not been putting up good performances so far this season. Didn't put up great performances last season. They have no run game. They severely missed Joe Mixon, but even then, I don't know if you want to rely on a 31-year-old Joe Mixon coming off an injury. and their defense isn't bad, but on a team that has had high hopes for their offense, it's not looked good so far. And especially with the offensive line, it's not. This might be a pretty bad team this year with how things have been going so far. I don't think they're going to be as bad as they look right now, but it's not looking good for the Texans. And again, they're 0-3. And it's like no team has ever made the playoffs after going 0-3, I think, or something along those lines. It might not be that exactly, but actually, I don't think it's that exactly. But still, it's they're in a huge hole now that they have to dig out of, and now it's there's still a lot of season left, but it's not looking optimistic. I'll say it's I'm a little worried about the Texans. So after that, moving on to another AFC divisional matchup, this time out west. It was the Denver Broncos, who were 1-1, going up against the LA Chargers, who were 2-0, coming off of two straight divisional victories and looking to secure a third, which they did, winning 23-20 against Denver. And this wasn't the Chargers' best game. I mean, Herbert looked good. He's looked very good, but he didn't look quite as dominant as he did, say, last week against the Raiders. Against the Raiders. But they definitely did enough to win. They played cleaner football. I think they actually have the same amount of turnovers, but I think it felt like they played cleaner football. Quentin Johnson still looks very good. And their defense played pretty well. This was one more where the Broncos kind of let this one slip away. Bo Nix in the offense got a lot of work to do. Doesn't look like Bo Nix has developed a ton in the offseason. He missed multiple open deep ball throws that would have been key. Probably would have won them the game at points. Their run game still, outside of one drive with J.K. Dobbins, was pretty bottled up. And this is a team going up against a Chargers team that was missing Khalil Mack, who apparently, even though he basically bent his arm the wrong way in last week, he's actually going to be able to come back at some point this season. Somehow. I don't really know how. But yeah, this is one where the Broncos really choked it away. I mean, they missed they missed the game-winning field goal or something like that? I think is what it was. Or something along the lines. They might have gotten it blocked. I don't remember exactly. But either way, they had it. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was blocked. They had a field goal that was blocked. And yeah, it was just a game that they could have won, but they let slip away. Sean Payton, I'm starting to get worried about his coaching decisions. He's made a lot of questionable decisions in this season when it comes to calling the offense. And yeah, there was a lot of hype for the Broncos coming into the season. Some people had them as Super Bowl contenders. I definitely had them as playoff contenders. I wouldn't have necessarily said Super Bowl, but I had them as playoff contenders, mostly due to the defense. But I still think they have a good chance of making the playoffs. But I think they're trending towards being another one and done that they were last year, because their offense still looks pretty samey, and you can't get that far with an offense that is just okay. They need more production out of Bo Nix. They need late regular season Bo Nix from last year to return, and right now that's not happening. So they're 1-2, but I wouldn't write them off whatsoever. But it's a rough loss for them, especially against a division rival. But yeah, it's for the Broncos. They still have a lot of work to do before they can really, definitively make a push in the playoffs. As for the Chargers, again, wasn't their best game, but still got out with a win and 3 straight wins to open the season, all of them against divisional opponents. You can't get much better than that, pretty much. Quentin Johnston looks really, really good now, which is a big surprise. And Yeah, this could be the Chargers' year. I don't want to say it because I feel like they always have something go wrong, but it could be their year. Speaking of teams that always like to say it's their year, the Dallas Cowboys. They went into Soldier Field to play the Chicago Bears, who were 0-2. Cowboys were 1-1. The Cowboys lost 14-31, and they looked bad, to say the least. They looked really bad. Their offense did not get much going. Didn't help that CeeDee Lamb went down with a high ankle sprain early on in the game. So that obviously does not help with their offense. But the rest of their offense did not play very well. Javonte Williams actually looks pretty decent so far as Dallas Cowboy. But, I mean, Dak didn't have a very good game. They lost Tyler Booker to an injury for 4 to 6 weeks. I think they also lost Tyler Guyton to an injury last week. Or like coming into this week. I don't remember if it's for the season, but 2 of their starting offensive linemen are down. Their starting wide receivers down now. And yeah, they're for the Cowboys that tend to rely on their offense, they're missing a lot of key pieces now. And putting up only 14 points against the Bears is not good. But that's not the story or that's not the big thing about the Cowboys. It's that their defense is bad, like really bad. And yeah, so they have no pass rush, which is not surprising considering they traded away Micah Parsons. And this was the first time in Caleb Williams' career that he was not sacked, ever, which is a pretty bad indictment for the Dallas Cowboys. They gave up 31 points to a Bears offense that seemed like a major work in progress. Bears, they finally looked like a Ben Johnson offense. And they were just kind of having their way with the Cowboys in this game. Caleb Williams looked good. He had his deep ball especially looked really good. Rome Odunze was popping off. Luther Burden was popping off. Yeah, there was total domination for the Chicago Bears. And while they're 1-2 now, they have a lot more optimism going forward now that, they finally can see what their offense is supposed to look like. Again, it's against the Dallas Cowboys and their defense is atrocious. So I don't know if I would say that the Bears are here to stay, but for a quarterback that's learning the new system and a rookie head coach getting his first win, to look like this is really good. As for the Cowboys, they're 1-2, and this is starting to look like a lost season. Like it's veering into that territory pretty quickly. Their defense looks bad. Their secondary looks atrocious. They have no pass rush. Their offense is dealing with injuries and hasn't performed up to standard anyway outside of, well, I guess they played well against the Giants last week, but it's not looking good for the Cowboys whatsoever. And they probably should have kept Micah Parsons. I'd say they probably should have kept him if they wanted to, actually say this is their year. But I think I can definitively say this is not going to be the Dallas Cowboys' year because they do not look good. Speaking of another team that does not look good, the New Orleans Saints. They went into Seattle and they played a game of football, and that's about all I can say in the good part. They lost 44-13 against the Seattle Seahawks. They were at one point down. Basically, I think it was like 38-6 at halftime. It was 38-6 at halftime. The Saints, their special teams was having the game of a nightmare. They had a blocked punt return for a touchdown. They gave up a punt return touchdown. Yeah, the Seahawks just completely dominated them on every single level. Rattler didn't really have a good game. Like no one had a good game for the Saints. It was bad on every level. This is one where I can basically just say the Saints were bad, the Seahawks were good, not much else. Darnold's looking pretty comfortable so far in the Seahawks. They could actually, they could make a run for this division. I think the Rams they're good, but they're playing a little weak right now. And I think the Seahawks could actually give them a run for their money with how they're playing so far. And Yeah, I mean, even against a pretty bad Saints team that is probably going to be picking number one overall at this rate, um, putting up 44 points against them is a pretty good sign. I I don't really know if I can say much more about it. This is really just one where Saints look bad, Seahawks look good. That's about it. So let me take one more sip of water here because I have 3 games to go. So the last of the afternoon games was an NFC West matchup between the Cardinals and the Niners in San Francisco. I think it's actually Santa Clara, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, Niners hosted the Cardinals. Niners were 2-0. Cardinals were also 2-0, actually, now that I think about it. And this is kind of rough. So the Niners won 16-15. In a game the Cardinals probably should have won. Cardinals, it was kind of what and I think a lot of other people were worrying, where they were 2-0, but coming off really unconvincing wins. And against a hobbled Niners team, they just could not really get much going. Marvin Harrison Jr., it's looking rough for him. He's had he has the yips or something for a receiver because has had some awful drops. Like there was one where he was going to catch like a 30-yard pass. There was no defender within 10 yards of him. He could have just stood there and caught it. Instead, he jumps up a little bit. He's like not even looking at the ball, and it just goes through his hands. And for a guy drafted, what was it, like 6th overall or something like that, with an insane amount of hype to him, it's not a good look. Cardinals as a whole, it's not good. James Conner is now out for the year. He had a bad-looking ankle injury and on a tackle, so that really sucks for the Cardinals because he's a very dynamic playmaker. I also forgot to mention that Najee Harris for the Chargers, he's out for the season with an Achilles injury, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, for the Cardinals, about as bad of a loss as you can get because they're going up against a division rival running a backup quarterback. Nick Bosa also tore his ACL in this game, so he's out for the year, and he tore it pretty early in the game. So you're going for the Cardinals that were going up against a division rival that was missing a lot of key pieces, and they still lost, which is not good. I mean, for the Niners, they're 3-0, put off a pretty tenacious win against another division rival, similar to what they did with the Seahawks in Week 1. So that's the good. The bad is that the injuries keep mounting up. Obviously, Nick Bosa, losing him is terrible for their defense, but I mean, hey, they're 3-0. So, I mean, and Mac Jones actually hasn't looked bad either. He's fit in pretty well into this Kyle Shanahan system, and he's holding down the fort well enough until Brock Purdy returns. So, for the Niners, I mean, it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory, but hey, they're 3-0. They're winning their games against the division. But, the injury concerns are probably going to start creeping up here soon. But this is one where I'd say the Niners are cautiously optimistic coming out of this game, while the Cardinals are, it's not good. Not good at all. They're looking more like the team we expect them to be. They tend to play very conservative, like playing basically not to lose rather than to win, which has not gone well for them in the slightest so far. So after that came the Sunday night game. The 0-2 Chiefs going into the 0-2 Giants home stadium of MetLife. And oh my God, this game was so bad to watch. It was just, it was a crime against humanity, especially in the first half. Neither offense looked good. Russell Wilson regressed back to Week 1 form. He actually looked even worse. He looked terrible. Mahomes didn't look great either. The entire Chiefs offense looked pretty out of sync. This is one where neither team really deserved to win. They both looked bad, but ultimately the Giants looked even worse. Russell Wilson had a stinker for the ages. And the Chiefs played okay enough to win. I'm still not very convinced on the Chiefs this year. They just look very bleh. Like Mahomes just doesn't look, he doesn't look that sharp. Kelsey looks washed. They don't have a good receiving core. Their defense it's okay. It definitely took a step up compared to the last couple weeks, but I mean, it's still when you're struggling for a good chunk of the game to beat the New York Giants, it's not a good look. And so right now they're 1-2 in a division with a really solid Chargers team and a Broncos team that's definitely looking to improve. So this Chiefs team has a lot of trouble going forward just in their division alone. I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs, but because I don't think they will, just because I think Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid are too good. But I'm not super high on them at the moment. As for the Giants, they lost Tyrone Tracy to injury for an extended period of time, so Cam Scatterboo season. And it looks like Jackson Dart's going to be starting here next week. Brian Dable made the decision to bench Russell Wilson. How long that's going to last, I don't know. But, I mean, after his performance on Sunday night, I don't blame him in the slightest because Russell Wilson just looked terrible. He's had one good game, and that was against the Cowboys. And we kind of see how bad the Cowboys defense is now. So, yeah, the Giants, I'd start looking at draft boards. Because I don't think they're going to be winning that many games this year, to be honest. Unless Jackson Dart just turns into God. I mean, that could happen and they could start winning, but I don't think that's going to happen. As for the final game of Week 3, the Detroit Lions, who were 1-1, went into not MetLife Stadium, M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore to take on the 1-1 Ravens. Both teams with some rough losses coming into this game, and some would say it's a Super Bowl preview. I know Ravens radio was typing it up as a potential Super Bowl preview because both these teams are very good. And this is one where the Lions defeated the Ravens 38-30. I might not have said the final score of the Chiefs game. It was 22-9. And yeah, that was ugly. But the Ravens lost 30-38 to the Lions on a game that was kind of similar to the Buffalo game. Not that they choked it away, but just like some similarities there. But this is one where it was more a story on the defenses rather than the offenses. The Ravens defense was not playing a very good game. They just did not seem to have many answers, especially for Detroit's run game. David Montgomery had just an absurdly good game. He was running all over the Ravens defense. And Jared Goff looked a lot better. This Detroit offense looks more and more like what I think we expected them to be, and Week 1 looked more like a fluke. And yeah, the Ravens it was not a good game for them defensively. For the Lions defense, it took them a bit to get going. They gave up some bad touchdown drives early, but especially towards the second half, their defense started to light things up. Their defensive line especially was getting just constant pressure on Lamar Jackson. I believe they had 7 sacks on him by the end of the night, which is kind of crazy for Lamar, but also kind of indictment on the Ravens O-line where they're not playing well so far in this game or in this season. Lions defense, Aiden Hutchinson's starting to look more and more like he was last year before he got injured. So, yeah, I think there's a lot more optimism now for the Lions because both sides of the ball look significantly better. As for the Ravens, again, their defense doesn't look good. Their offense doesn't look bad. They did not get Zay Flowers involved whatsoever, which frustrated me because I had him on fantasy and I needed him to score high to win, which he did not. He got like 4 points. Derrick Henry had a good game, all things considered. In terms of like yardage, he had a touchdown, but he did have another costly fumble in the fourth quarter, which was more just an insane play by Aiden Hutchinson to punch the ball out from behind. But it was like basically the same play the Ravens ran where Derrick Henry fumbled in week one against Buffalo. So, yeah, again, it's just a rough look. And the Ravens just seem to have trouble closing games out so far in the season. Like they dominated Cleveland in the second half last week, but they absolutely choked against Buffalo week 1 and were unable to complete the comeback this week against Detroit, which is a little worrying to say the least. Mark Andrews had a good game. Lamar didn't have a bad game, but it's a little worrying that against, like playoff and even Super Bowl caliber competition, the Ravens are struggling. Like they can't seem to complete games and overcome deficits in the end, which is concerning. Ravens are also 1-2, which isn't a good kind of hole they want to climb out of. But I do think this division is pretty open now because I think the Steelers are pretty mid at best. The Browns are mid at best, and even then they're like low to mid at best just because of their defense. And the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow anymore. So this is a division that's pretty wide open for the Ravens. They just need to play better in the second half of games. They just got to not fall apart, essentially. But yeah, I think that's all I can really say on the Ravens. Just a tough loss against a good team. They know what they need to work on. It's just, can they do it? It's been a question mark that I think has been plaguing the Ravens for years now, which is it gets to the point where you start to look at John Harbaugh and his coaching staff, and I know some Ravens fans really don't like how he's coached things over the past couple of years. And if this trend does continue, that's when the uncomfortable questions are going to have to start. But for now, it's still early in the season, still plenty left to go, and the Ravens can certainly make a good run of games here coming up. But that is it for week 3 of the NFL season. Again, some pretty surprising results, especially that Cleveland Green Bay result. That was crazy. But yeah, it was fun overall. Only a couple teams left at 3-0. Colts being the big surprise, and it'll be interesting to see how things go forward here for the NFL season. To see if a lot of these trends continue, or if someone starts making a huge run for it. And all the fun stuff that happens as the NFL season goes along. As for my next episode, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I might do my Three Houses story recap, because I've been getting that itch now with the reveal of what was it, Shadows Weave, I think is what it's called, the new Fire Emblem game set in the Three Houses universe. So that could be something I do on like Saturday or Sunday or Friday. Not quite sure yet, but we'll see. If not, I might just skip ahead to next week's recap, but we'll see. Either way, there will be a definitive episode next week for the Week 4 NFL recap. I thank you all for listening, and I hope you all tune in again to a play-by-play review.